want to talk to you guys about is Bitcoin and blockchain. In fact, in 2008, we were electing a new president, and we were having a Wall Street crisis. At that same time, there was a paper that was put out by Satoshi Nakamoto called Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Has anyone read this paper? We got one. It's actually about like 12 to 14 pages long. It's not a super technical read. I would actually encourage you to read it. Does anyone here own Bitcoin? Maybe a few hands. It's unfortunate. It's like 10x this year. It's incredibly important, I believe, to experiment with these technologies. And just to kind of give you an example, how many of you know how to code or program a mobile application? Handful. How many of you have been in a room, in a meeting, and were presented with a problem, and one of you said, you know, it'd be great if we had a mobile application that could help address that problem? A lot more of you. But you don't know how to code. You don't know how to build a mobile application. What allowed you to say that? It's because you play with it every day. You got apps on your smartphone. You play with them. You understand that you can access the internet. You can access maps. You can access your location. You can order things. You understand the basics. So how will you understand Bitcoin and blockchain, outside of this talk that I'm about to give you, if you don't have it on your phone, if you don't play with it? So I encourage you. Just download $10 in Bitcoin. Download the wallet. Buy it. Play with it. Because that'll give you a better understanding of how to come up with ways that it can address some of the things that you're trying to address. But what is Bitcoin and blockchain? And how do we understand it? Why is it so important? Why do people say that it's the second coming of the internet? Well, one of the great things about going digital is the ability to replicate things at near zero cost. So I could take a picture of this room right now. I could send it to all of you. I could put it on Instagram. I could continue to replicate it. It would cost me virtually nothing to do that, which is fantastic. But what if we had an asset, like a dollar, a digital dollar? Can we continue to replicate that? No, there's a cost. It would have no value. So people get caught up, and it's a little hard to understand when you talk about money. So let's talk about something else that most of you are familiar with. Has anyone here got an electronic ticket to a concert or a sporting event? Yeah, most of you. Now, when I talk with people around the world, there's one feeling that is international. That is butterflies in your stomach. When you go to scan the barcode, and you're like, yeah, a lot of you guys are laughing, that nervous laugh, because you don't know when you were emailed that PDF or when it was sent to you or you bought it online from a secondary market. Is that really mine? Like, did they sell it to 10 other people? Now you have those butterflies because you know that this digital asset that represents value could have been replicated. That's the value that cryptocurrencies bring. They create a unique ledger that verifies who the owner of that digital asset is without giving the ability to replicate it. So let me give you an example. StubHub, which is a popular resale site for tickets in the United States, a couple of guys bought tickets for $195 for what they were assuming was Kobe Bryant's last game. And then Kobe, 3 weeks later, announced that he was going to retire. Tickets shot up 664%, but they're good. They bought the tickets, right? Nope. StubHub reached out, and somewhere in their terms of service, they were allowed to actually take those tickets back. And they said, we'll give you a $250 credit. Like, we don't care. We want the tickets. We're Kobe fans. But for some reason, according to their terms of service, they were able to take it back. So what you have to understand is that Bitcoin was built for people, not companies or organizations. To make sure that you have the rights you need. So that if you buy a ticket, terms of service that allows people to take it back, which is incredibly important as we go from an analog to digital world. Now, some people think Bitcoin's crazy. In fact, I'm sure many of you actually think Bitcoin is crazy. But I would argue that the world we're living in is even crazier. So, for example, if I was to ask Luke, what's your email address? Because I want to send you an email. Luke might say it's Luke at whatever, creativeinnovations.com. Great. Send you an email. That's it. I don't ask him if he's using Hotmail or Gmail or Outlook or iPhone or iPad or a desktop. I don't ask any of those questions. Why? Because there's an open interoperable protocol called SMTP that allows us to seamlessly transfer messages back and forth regardless of who I use as my email provider, regardless of who Luke uses as his email provider. Well, that's the same thing with cryptocurrencies. I can transfer an asset from my wallet to your wallet without having to ask you, what wallet are you using? What bank are you using? Because if I said, hey, Luke, I want to send you $10. I'm in the US and he's in Australia. We're going to play a game of 20 questions. Do you use PayPal? Do you use TransferWise? Do you use this, that? I don't know. Do you use Venmo? I don't know. I'm over the age of 35, right? We'll just go back and forth. And so, arguably, the world that we live in today is much crazier in terms of how we transfer assets. Because you don't have these open protocols, which is what cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin enable. So what is the blockchain, which is the underlying technology that powers cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin? It's just a ledger. It's simply a ledger of debits and credits with addresses. You can transfer money. Some governments are starting to put property title on the blockchain, or you can do tickets, as we discussed. When's Australia going to get on board? And what that creates is decentralized trust, which eliminates intermediaries. And if you think about it, it's kind of similar to the internet. The internet, you got several open protocols that run over TCP/IP. You got SMTP, which is email, FTP, which is upload and download. You got HTTP, which allows you to browse the web from any browser that you want, regardless of the site that you're going to access. And similarly, we're starting to create several protocols, obviously money, but identity, reputation, and marketplace. And if you think about what those four things represent, they actually represent a lot of the companies online today. You could call that the eBay stack, right? Because what is eBay? eBay has four things. It's money transfer, it's identity, it's reputation, it's marketplace. What is Uber? Money transfer, identity, reputation, marketplace. What is Airbnb? Money transfer, identity, reputation, marketplace. StubHub. All of these things are basically these four protocols. And so what happens when you've got these four things, and they're creating more, is that all of a sudden, you're less dependent on one company. What if you were a driver and you just digitally raised your hand and said, I'm a driver? I've got a digital identity and it's somehow authenticated through the government. I've got a 4.5-star reputation that works on all platforms. And I'm just digitally raising my hand to say, hey, I'm in this marketplace. And we'll seamlessly transfer money through Bitcoin or a cryptocurrency. Then it doesn't matter if you're using Uber to browse the available drivers or Luke's ride-sharing app. All of a sudden, you get this open, interoperable, accessible marketplace that breaks down the current moats that we have with many of the platforms. So it re-engineers networking effects to benefiting one company, but to benefiting everyone. which is truly transformational, was the original promise of the web. And so let me give you a few examples of ways people are exploring this. So this is Hernando de Soto, who's a prominent economist from Peru. And his thesis is that if people, for example, in his country of Peru, had access to more clear property title, they'd have better access to credit. And so this is an example of one piece of property title. It's just a chain of transactions, very long, and he wants to digitize it. And he's working with several governments now to put property title on the blockchain so that regardless of the government in power, you have clear, transparent ledgers that show who owns what, and a corrupt government makes it harder for them to be able to take property away from anyone. In the United States, we lose $24 billion annually because of identity theft. It's because most of our identity by governments is analog, not digital. And we're experiencing massive challenges in the United States with the Equifax hack, which released all of our personal data, which allows people to replicate easily our identities online. So are there ways that an identity based on the blockchain could be more helpful there in collaboration with the governments? I know the Australian government was working on a cloud-based digital passport, which seemed pretty interesting as well. Or medical records. So one of the innovations that we were working on in our research group at the Media Lab was creating electronic medical records on the blockchain that could allow you to be able to seamlessly transfer your information with other doctors and control who sees what, revoke that access, or give that access, and you and the patient are in control. Whether it's your formal electronic medical records with your doctors, or whether it's connected to your Fitbit or some other device as well, which become incredibly powerful. And that's important because in the United States, according to one study, a lack of electronic healthcare record interoperability is costing 150,000 lives per year. This could have huge impacts. Or financial inclusion. We were talking to one finance minister who was very interested in cryptocurrencies. He wasn't thrilled with Bitcoin, but ultimately he became very excited about it because he's been trying to address financial inclusion. And so currently they support about 25% of the families through social welfare distributions, and they do it in cash, and they distribute it via kayak and other means, and there's huge opportunities for fraud. And so this could be a better opportunity to be able to seamlessly transfer money without using one company, like an M-Pesa, to control the entire system. And he would prefer a more open system. And so he was very excited about this opportunity and all the additional benefits that can come from that, like allowing other smart startups to be able to come in and provide more digital services to it, like insurance. Anyone gone from a DVD to Apple or Roku? Yeah? It's pretty awesome. I love it. But we actually lost some rights going forward, and this is what we have to think about. I discovered this when I wanted to rent Star Wars, and I saw that I couldn't rent it. It was going to cost me $100. And then I went walking around to try and find a DVD store, and I couldn't find one. Because when you click that button buy, that's actually a lie. You don't own it. If you owned it, you'd be able to rent it out. You'd be able to sell it. Because if you've got a physical DVD or VHS in the US, you were allowed to rent it or sell it. But when it goes digital, you no longer own it, even though you paid for it, which makes it harder to rent out. And so I got to pay $100 instead of $20 to rent all of them. Kindle, Nook, they're not interoperable. Every book I buy on Amazon, I'm stuck with using my Kindle for the rest of my life. I can't access them on a different electronic reader if I like. In the United States, it's illegal to sell your iTunes tracks. Here's the other kicker. Every time Star Wars has been re-released, they've actually changed the movie. That's great. There's actually a Wikipedia page dedicated to all of the changes that they've made. So I didn't even get access to the original content. But we're starting to see people sell their music online and use a blockchain as a form of DRM that allows you to truly own it. And when you're done listening to the song, you could then sell it and give it to someone else. So Imogen Heap has been working on that, and she did it with Tiny Human. And I think one of the more awe-inspiring, incredibly powerful things that really kind of blew my mind is the protesters in Ukraine. And they needed money. They couldn't get any. And so they put up their QR code. And the QR code went viral and started to flash on TV screens around the world. And in one day, I think they raised between $10,000 and $15,000 from people around the world just seeing that QR code and being able to immediately send money to their wallets. That's how powerful this is. And when I go around the world talking about cryptocurrencies, like I was in Iraq, you see the reaction in their face. Where you have weaker financial systems, weaker legal and governmental systems, for them, this is incredibly powerful because it starts to impose that trust and transparency that they don't have today. And the way I think about this is what the internet did was exponentially increase our communication. And what cryptocurrencies allow for in a similar fashion is exponentially increasing the amount of transactions that'll take place between individuals, companies, and organizations. And that is the true power of these cryptocurrencies. And there's a lot of hype. There is a lot of hype. So if you're going to ask me where we're at on the curve, I think we have hit peak inflated expectations. It does get a bit crazy. I do think we're starting to go into the trough of disillusionment. But the important thing is that we're actually going forward. And so we're getting closer to the slope of enlightenment and the plateau of productivity every day. It's actually moving faster than I could have ever imagined when I first got into this space. And so I ask you to take out your phones right now, and I see some. Just take out your phones. Turn on the camera app. And take a picture of my email address. And the reason for that, I do try to get to inbox 0, and this doesn't help. But take a picture of this, because this was an introduction to kind of get you warmed up and start to get you to understand the basics and the power of this technology. But what I'll do is if you email me, I will reply immediately with a link to a set of blog posts that are organized. And if you have a spare 30 minutes, read these 4 blog posts. Then you'll get super curious. And then you'll say, well, I want more. And then on that same blog post, I'll say, well, then read these 6 articles. That'll take you 2 to 3 hours. And that'll get you through from just starting to understand to going deep and being able to talk and explore in ways that this will dramatically impact the projects that you're working on. So send me that email. I'll send you that link. More than 50,000 people have gone to this page, from finance ministers to Fortune 500 CEOs to students around the world. So send me an email. I'll send you that link. And feel free to shoot me an email with any questions you might have. So thank you so much. It's been great.